Hi, I'm KS Garner, and you're listening to the Solo Nerd Podcast. Today, I'll be speaking with the creator, writer, and artist of the comic series Celestial Knight, Dennis Valencia, here to promote issue 2 currently on Kickstarter. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us today. But outside my introduction, who is Dennis Valencia in his own words?
I like to call myself an OG. I look a lot younger than I am, but I'm actually a 50-year-old man. I started creating and drawing when I was in my early, 10s, 11, 12s, created my character, which we're going to talk about today, probably was around 15. I stopped drawing probably in my mid to late 20s, and then start picking up drawing until about 3 years ago. And that's kind of where I am right now. Father of two, lovely wife, just a man, 9 to 5, trying to live his dream,
Uh-huh. So what got you back into comics? Because you said you stopped at a certain age, and then you just started back up again a couple of years ago.
Yeah, this is gonna sound real corny, so don't judge me on this one. But when I got out of college, I met my wife, and my wife, a dime piece, and I wanted to impress her so much. I didn't want her to let her know that I was a nerd who read comics. I took my posters down. And I didn't want to be like, it was sad. I didn't want to be me, like my internal nerd. So I hid it for a while. I would draw here, and she knew I could draw, but it wasn't something where I was passionate about. So for a good, gosh, maybe 15, 20 years, I would draw for my kids or draw for like an occasion, or in a card or something. I would draw like, little caricatures or something. But when it came to the comic books, I would stop going to my LCS, would stop buying comic books. I would stop reading books. It was sad, to be honest with you. It was missing. And then 3 years ago, I was going through a dark period. I think we all go through these, when you're ups and your downs. And she'd always just say, "Why don't you draw? You never draw anymore." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I would always brush it off. And then she finally said, "Why don't you draw one time?" And then I started drawing. And I actually was on a blank sketch cover that I had that was sitting in my long box. And that was it. Like what I'd been missing, what felt empty in my being and in my soul, it was that. It wasn't the drawing part. It was being a creator. And I think anyone who's an artist can relate to that. Like if you don't do it for a while, like there's this internal thing in your soul that's missing. And for me, I was lucky to peg it and be like, that's what's missing. And then put that piece back in my soul. But it was for a long time where you just kind of like, there's an empty feeling. You go into your 9 to 5, you do the daily grind. You got to be, a parent, and you take care of your wife and you pay the bills. But there's something missing, like this isn't what it's all about. And something so simple, that was it.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that you kind of hid the nerdy part in the drawing from your wife to kind of like keep that away from her, or so it wouldn't interfere with you as you were dating her at the time. And then fast forward all these years later, she's the one that's like, "Hey, I know you like to draw. Why don't you get back into it since you're not feeling yourself lately?" So
that's crazy.
Yeah, that's really crazy. But what inspired I guess Celestial Knight and for you to create this and to go through with it as a series?
There's a couple things. I created it when I was 15. I used to sit next to my grandmother, and she would sit and she'd watch, like, I don't know if you remember Remington Steele and 227 and like Golden Girls. And I would sit next to her. The big thing was I grew up in New York. I grew up in a neighborhood that did not accept my nationality, for one way to put it. It's very a bigoted community. I went through a lot of racism. I was jumped. I was curled at, names, rocks, spit on, all that good stuff when I was young. I was 15. And I hid indoors. I stayed indoors with my grandmother, and I read comics. Comics to me was good versus evil. I read classic X-Men, Fantastic Four, anything that I could pick up that was just all about good versus evil. And I'd sit next to my grandmother, and I would just draw because I didn't want to go outside. And I'd read these stories, and I would just draw next to her. And I created Celestial Knight then. And he had a couple of different names. It's Celestial Warrior, the Star Knight, and I love drawing armor. Like I didn't see a lot of armor out there, so I just started copying artists who drew armor. And that was kind of my thing. Like I don't see a lot of guys in armor other than Iron Man, but I want to do my own thing. Fast forward till 3 years ago, a buddy of mine, my publisher Savage Sandbox, he created a character, and he's 50 also, and he found me on Instagram. He was like, "Would you like to do a cover?" And this was my first foray into indie comics. And I did a cover for him, and I started working with him. And I just kept looking at him like, he's 50 years old. This is on his bucket list. he was able to check a box on the bucket list. And for me, it was just like, he can do it. He's my age. Why can't I do it? I'm not just going to be relegated to a cover guy or a pinup guy, or promoting everyone in the community. I want to do my own book. And, a buddy of mine said, hey, don't you have any, OCs? And I said, yeah, someone from way back when. I still got the old original drawings. And that's kind of where it led me to finally having the stones to put it in print and put it out there,
Yeah, I find it interesting that a lot of us, nerds, geeks, what have you, we kind of turn towards I guess reading and drawing and writing and whatnot as a way to not only escape but almost as a means of survival in a way.
Yes.
Like not just from the people outside, or even within our family or our peers and whatnot, even the people that we may work with, but also to escape a little bit from ourselves in a way, like depression and possibly to having suicidal thoughts and anxiety and things like that. It's kind of just like, I wouldn't say a distraction in a way. It may be a distraction at first, but then it kind of snowballs and evolves into something that can be productive in a way.
Yeah, no, 100% right. And I always look at, when I always talk about origin stories, those like defining moments of when you grow up or those issues, you face, you could either go two ways. And for me, it's always like, do you go the hero route or do you go the villain route? And, for me, I turned something into a positive where I just sat next to my grandmother and just drew. And even though I missed going outside and I felt, discriminated if I stepped outside my door, I can still look to this day and tell my boys, like I did turn something negative into a positive, and my boys face it, they still they face it just this week. But I always say, like it feels hard in the moment. It's tough in the moment. It sucks, but this isn't going to define you. This won't define you. We're not going to let you beat you. We're going to turn this around. You're going to make this something stronger and better, and you're going to turn it into something positive. And I'm living proof,
So in regards to the Hero Celestial Knight, what should readers expect? I guess returning readers expect from issue 2, and I guess for new readers, like they want to get into the series, they're interested in it. So I guess what is it about, and I guess what should readers expect for issue 2?
Yeah, so issue 1, it's a 3-issue arc. It's all an origin story. So for me, whenever I look at a character, and I read comic books, like you do, every superhero villain, there's always an origin story. And to me, it was always, if you had superpowers bestowed on you, what would motivate you to defend a planet where you don't know, like, your family and your friends, but why are you defending millions and millions of people that you know nothing about? Whether it's religion or just, how you were raised. Maybe you fight the good fight, but there's got to be more to that. Like, I'm going to risk my life for a bunch of people either I don't know or people I might not even like, but I'm going to risk my life for that. So that was the starting point to the story. So issue 1, it laid that foundation. It was the first notch in his story of, I'm going to put this, I'm going to be powered and I'm going to defend the planet. That was the first part. And I always look at like Peter Parker. He got bit by a spider. Part 1 of his origin. 2, he has Mary Jane. He wants to live up to this model-esque girlfriend. That's number 2. He wants to prove that, he's not a nerd. He's, a lab rat. And then number 3, Uncle Ben. So his origin was like 3 parts to his origin. Is it as, it's bigger in picture than scope than Batman. Batman, he lost his parents. You can't get any more, in your face origin than that. But for me, it's a 3-issue arc. Issue 1 starts the first part of his origin where he can finally be like, this is why I'm going to be a hero. I'm going to be the cape. Issue 2 builds on that. Another thing happens where he's going to be like, okay, this is where I am in life, and this is why I want to do what I want to do. Issue 3, he comes full circle where he's like, I'm going to defend the planet, and this is why. And I really wanted to hit home, like, again, like if you have these powers, why would you defend a planet where you probably could find so much what is wrong with it? And why you put your life on the line for it.
So could you elaborate just a little bit more on your creative process on Celestial Knight as a whole? So I guess you had your old drawings, and then, you know, there's a spark of creativity to kind of bring it back. How was that process? Like, you know, did you, what ideas and aspects did you keep, and which ones did you get rid of?
Mm,
And like, how did you go through the whole thing of finding an editor, or
mm.
because the world of comics is not how it was when you were younger. It's all this whole
Yeah,
new thing that's way bigger than it ever was back when you were growing up. So how was it,
yeah.
you know, trying to bring something back, you know, um, an idea that you had into this new
Mhm.
world? So bringing the old into the new.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. At least for me, I knew what I'm good at. Since I was been drawing for so long, I knew my strength was my art. I knew I was raised on 90s image comics. So I knew like my forte is like battle scenes and coloring and just the chaos of a page. I knew what I need to work on is my storytelling. I'm not a storyteller. I'm not a writer. I brought aboard an editor, and I always recommend. I know, you know, it's hard to hear that harsh criticism. I brought an editor. I gave her my first scene. My first scene was 3 pages. She sent me back 15 pages of critique.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I read the first two and I had to put it away because it hit hard. Like it was called out the littlest things, but I knew she's a pro. She had written 5 books. I knew she knew what she was talking about, and I need to be humble. I need to not be, I need to take this down a notch. So I used a Marvel method, old school Marvel method. I drew everything out because I knew the scenes in my head, panels. I knew the story that I wanted to lay out. So I finished at the time, the book is 32 pages for issue 1. Book 2 will be 36 pages. When I laid it out Marvel method, everything was drawn. I did my script and my story. I was able to present it to her, and then she went through and then, you know, helped me work on dialogue, structure, some grammar, you know, the most basic things. I always recommend. So I drew it, I inked it, I colored it, I wrote it, I did everything. So for me, one, it's cost effective. I only have to pay for either if I bring other people on, editor, letterer, variant cover artist, colorist, things like that. Variant colorist. It was more cost effective, especially going to Kickstarter. But at the same time, you need help. I don't care how skilled you are. It's always great to have someone coming in from the outside, looking in, especially when they have serious credentials. It's humbling. You know, you're never too big to ask for help.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
So your editor,
Mhm.
what's their name? I'm looking at your Kickstarter right now. I think they're on there.
Yes.
Farrell?
Farrell Paulus. Yes,
Farrell
ma'am.
Paulus. Okay. So how did you know Farrell was the editor that was right for Celestial Night?
So the funny thing is, we worked together. We worked together
Mhm.
for 4 years, and you know, we hit it off in the beginning because we talk about, you know, all the nerd fun stuff. We talk about Star Wars. She's a big Star Wars fan, so we talk about Star Wars, anything that came out in Marvel. Whenever the next series would come out, did you see this episode? What do you think of this? And this is the crazy thing: we never agreed on it. So we'd watch an episode of like what is it, the Captain America Winter Soldier, and I'd come back and she'd say something and I would totally disagree with her, and I'd be like, this is weird. And it kept happening. A movie would come out, I'd give her my be like, oh, I didn't like this, and she'd be like, I loved it, or vice versa. And I was like, this is crazy. We work together, we like the same stuff, we can never agree on our opinions of how these projects are. So when I brought her on, that was kind of one of the things. I needed someone to say like a different viewpoint. She always
Mhm.
said, you know, at the end of the day, it's your book. You're going to decide how you want to do it. But she's giving me a different viewpoint for me to consider. It's not a yes man. It's not someone going to say like, oh, this is great, this is great, this is great. It's literally saying, well, what if you did this, or this isn't correct. Like, and she was brutally honest. Um, Again, you know, it's humbling, you know, it makes you take a step back. But I think that's one of the things I would recommend. If you bring someone on, or if you're surrounded by people who aren't afraid to tell you their opinions, I think it really helps you develop your skill set, your project. It's always good to hear different opinions than your own because you're always in your head.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess Farrell is not, she wasn't afraid of hurting your feelings, I guess, in a way, whereas other people would kind of be like I guess if it was anybody else, they would kind of be afraid of hurting your feelings, or they wouldn't tell you exactly
Yeah.
what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, she's definitely not one to shy away from an argument, an opinion, especially on something like I said. She's written over 5 books. She's very skilled, very talented, and again, she knows what she's doing. If it was an art thing, I would probably say, "Oh, they did this for that." But when it comes to that skill set, I definitely refer to her.
Mm-hmm. So how about I guess Christopher, who's your letterer, Mohamed,
Yes,
the variant cover artist,
yes,
Mary, who also did the variant color, I guess the variant cover color of it. So
yes.
so finding these other collaborators, how did you find them and how did you know that these were the right people to work with?
So Christopher is great. He has his own indie comic. He actually is from Homebrewed Comics. He does a D&D based comic. I think he's 5 issues deep. He is a pro when it comes. He's a pro to me for Kickstarter and for indie comics. In our group, the Savage Sandbox, he does all the lettering of the group. So I know just from his track record, and I always call him the hardest working man in indie comics because he's always working. Whether it's our book, my book, his book, the rest of the group's books, he's always working. So for him, he has that tenure and he has that cachet for me of being multiple books, very successful Kickstarters. That was how I found Christopher. When it comes to Mo, we just hit it off, found each other on Instagram. He was actually working with Christopher. He was actually his cover artist on his books. And Mo and I, Mo's Asian, we just hit it off. He's in Thailand. We just had a lot of things to talk about, and we just clicked really quick. Our art styles are very similar. We both grew up on 90s image, so we have very kinetic energy when it comes to our art. So we hit it off that way. He is my closest guy. It's always crazy like how we meet people on social media.
Mhm.
I flock to him like I would say he's my brother. Like never met him. I hope to meet him one day, and whether he's coming here from Thailand or I go to Thailand. But I probably turn to him, spoke to him, all the time, whatever it's about art, family, you name it. He is a brother to me. And then Mary, she just put on Instagram and she's been coloring pieces here and there. She's always on my radar. She was on coloring another gentleman's work, and he was on her radar. And the funny thing was, we'd always talk about like she's really good. And then I scooped her up for this campaign, and the first thing he hit me back was he got to her before I did. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And this is her first campaign coloring. So I'm really happy to bring her in. She bought my first book, CK1.
Mhm.
I was at a con and she drove 2 hours to meet me at the con. And I was like, that's amazing. Like you
This is
bought
amazing.
my kick. Yeah, it was just, you bought my Kickstarter CK1, you follow me on Instagram. And I'm like, that's when your peers become your friends. And she showed up with her family. I was like, that like blew my mind. And I was just like, you know what? That's super cool. Like screw the numbers and books and all that. But when you really dug my work and you wanted to meet me as a person, you drove 2 hours to go to a con and meet me. Like that's pretty dope.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've met a couple of people that I've done interviews with,
Yeah.
and it's a bit surreal meeting them sometimes. And I've had, some people even like stopped me when I'm doing cons or festivals,
Mm.
when it might be, and they might ask me, am I this person? And it's kind of weird in a way. I kind of freeze. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, that's me. I always feel like I
mm,
did something wrong or something.
I hear that. No, because you don't know their intent. You don't know if it's like,
Yeah.
is that you, good or bad?
Uh-huh. I mean,
That's funny.
yeah, with Mary, I mean, she could have been like, I bought this and I didn't like it. I was like, ooh.
Right, right. 100%.
Yeah, yeah. But what advice would you offer to other creators you wish someone would have told you when you, I guess, not when you first started comics,
Mhm.
maybe yeah, when you first started comics, and then some advice you would have been offered when you got back into it.
I think would be there's two of them, and one I'd already touched on was get an editor. Like don't be
Mhm.
afraid to ask for help. It doesn't hurt. The only thing that's going to hurt is your ego. So get an editor, get a support group, get people who can give you different opinions. You don't have to agree with those opinions, but they will help you get a different input, a different set of eyes on it, a different perspective on your project. So get an editor, get a group of people who will look at your project and give you criticism, good or bad. And then the second thing was, like I said, I didn't draw for quite a while. So, or I didn't put myself out there for this, when I look back at it, just a really like pretty lame reason. Like I hid part of myself because I wanted to impress someone, which is pretty sad when you think about it. It's never too late. I look at my buddy who checked that box on his bucket list. Same thing. Like I could have just let this go, and I could have been like, oh, I'm never going to create a book. I'll just be a cover guy. But to have that and to actually be like, wow, I actually created my own comic and get like really cool reviews and people who like it. It's never too late. I don't care what kind of art you're into, podcasting, music, painting. Even if I meet people at cons all the time where I'm like, the first thing I'll say to them when they come to my table is like, so what do you do? You draw, you write? Like, what are you here for? And they'll tell me like, oh, I just draw this. And I'm like, show me. And they'll show me like, a little sketch or something. And I'll be like, that's great. Like, look at what you did now. Like, you never know where you're going to be 10, 20 years from now. And if this is something you like, you never know where it's going to be. So never give up on fulfilling that creator part in you, because it's just never too late.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But outside of working on Celestial Night 2 and Celestial Night as a whole, how well do you find balance for your life? How do you typically manage your mental well-being when you become stressed, frustrated, or overwhelmed?
Oh man, that's a good one. I'll use this week, for example. My 9 to 5, we're down a manager. I'm acting manager right now. So my hours are up and down. I never have a set schedule. So, tomorrow I work till 8:30. This morning I went on my day off and worked 3 hours. I have a great wife who I just want to spend a lot of time with. I have 2 awesome kids who, after this, I was like, hey, do you want to go to the gym after this? It's a lot, it's just that work-life balance is real tough. Majority of time that I'm able to create is when everyone falls asleep. My wife is notoriously, she goes to bed early. She goes to bed, probably the latest would be 10 o'clock. My kids fall asleep, same thing for school. They're in bed by 10. My buddies, they call me, and one of the things I'm working on, I'm known as Team No Sleep. And Team No Sleep are those creators who are up till 1 or 2 in the morning, and all we're doing is I'm sitting there in bed. There's my wife next to me. I got my iPad here, got a pillow underneath in the middle of the night and dark. And from 10 to 1, 2 o'clock, I'm drawing. I'm doing something. I'm doing either promo art for people, promo art for myself, working on my book. And then you get up, 6:30 in the morning, wake up my son for school, and we do the whole thing all over again. I'm sure like trying to fit this in and follow your passion in a normal daily, is pretty tough. But we do it because we love it,
Yeah. I saw Team No Sleep in the comic that she sent me.
Yeah.
But when I wrote my first book, I was doing 8 hours at my job, and it's like an hour to get there, 8 hours themselves, and then another hour to get home. So no, it's like 10 hours of work pretty much. And then I would come home, walk my dog, maybe eat something or drink something, and then I would pull like another 6 hours of writing. And I remember like my mom was asking, she was like, shouldn't you be asleep? Shouldn't you be, you want to take a break? And I was like, no, like I need to get this down. I need to have this done. And I wouldn't take a shower until like maybe 11 o'clock or something like that, you know, and then be so wired that I can't fall asleep until probably like 1. And then I have to get up and do it all over again tomorrow. And I didn't really have an issue with that because I just loved it so much. And it wasn't a problem to me. But then I would be at work and I would write stuff down on sticky notes.
Yep.
So that's how I was getting a lot of the stories done. Like I still have, I'm probably somewhere around here, I still have the sticky notes from back in 2015.
That's great.
Yeah, I totally get it. Being up late at night like that, and you just can't help it in a way. And that is kind of, if you don't do it, then you're going to be agitated. You're going to be anxious. You feel like you have to do something or it's going to be gone. Whereas, people from outside looking in, they're like, you should stop. You're doing too much. But it's like, no, I need to be doing this or I'm going to feel like shit,
Well, How many times have you tried to go to sleep, but it's on your mind and you can't fall asleep until you get it done, or you do something with it because you're not going to fall asleep. There's no way until you get it out.
Yeah, I'll wake up and have an idea and I'll just start writing it on my
Yeah,
phone. And I
yeah,
still have some notes and I'm just like, I look back at it now, I'm like, what is this? I don't even know what this is,
yeah.
but I don't throw anything away. I don't delete
Hmm.
anything
Hmm.
because my brain knows what this is. I'll
Yeah,
do
yeah, yeah.
something with it at some point. So
Right. That's great. I'm gonna make you an honorary member of Team No Sleep.
I need sleep. I'm starting to get bad because I noticed a while ago. I'm like, oh my
It
God,
catches up with you. It'll catch up with you.
it needs to stop. It needs, I'm on
No, I
camera a
know.
lot. It needs to stop.
I hear you.
But is there anything else that you wanted to touch on about Celestial Night 2 that we may have missed as a whole? Maybe discuss more about the Kickstarter and the
Yeah.
rewards for potential backers.
Yeah. So, like I said, issue two continues his origin story. It's it's a very simple campaign. My first campaign was monstrous. I did $4,600. I had 104 backers. It was a big one. My biggest tiers was a $130 tier. For this Kickstarter, I really wanted to keep it simple. I wanted it to be about the book. So my tiers are very small. My biggest tier is only $60. That's less than half of what my first campaign was tier. The book it's alone is 36 pages with a pull-out poster in the middle, like real old school image comic. So 36 pages, pull-out poster, only $8 plus shipping. It's pretty good for 36 pages, considering what you get for, $5 to $6 for a 22, 28 page comic now. And the lowest tier is a digital copy, which is only $3. I have a big following, or a lot of people I know are in Australia or in the UK, and I'm from the Philippines, so I have a nice little contingent over there. So I wanted to make it accessible to everybody. Chugging right along really well. I know we're over 2,000. I know I'm at 55 backers, maybe 56 by now. So it's not about the dollar value. It's really about trying to get my book onto many people, as many hands as I can to continue the story. And then, I'm really passionate about the story. It hits home. It's part of me. It's not just a regular, superpower guy. It's really a lot of it has to do from how I grew up, growing up in New York, chasing that American dream, and then continue it into as you get to know the characters in issue two and his bigger circle of characters.
Mm-hmm. I'm starting to notice as I interview more and more people, and then they
Yeah.
come to me. I guess like I spoke to them doing their first Kickstarter, or their second one. They come back doing the third one, and I start to notice when they discuss their first Kickstarter that they kind of go big on the first one.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not sure why they do that. I guess because they feel like they have to do as many things as possible or have as many rewards as possible or have a big goal because they're trying to get as much as they can. I'm not sure. How has it been, from your first Kickstarter to this one? Like, why did you lower the amount down? Or I should say, I guess the biggest reward is only you said $60, right?
$60, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess what was the difference for you? Why did you feel like you had to scale it down some?
Well, the group I work with, and there's 7 of them in Savage Sandbox. They level up their tiers. So you started out with a basic book, right? Your first campaign. Second book, you're maybe a book, varied cover. Third campaign, they're looking at. I mean, one guy had plushie, he had an action figure. Another guy had a mask, coins. So all these guys are leveling up in their Kickstarters. I'm on my second. I went big, and you're 100% right. You kind of just you unload the clip on your first one because you want it to hit. You want to fund. You're looking at everyone, the landscape in the comics. You're seeing everyone having these successful campaigns. You say, "This is my one shot. Is it worth it? I want to put as much out there as I can and make it worthwhile." And you empty the clip. For this one, I empty the clip. I have a nice little following, but again, it was so successful. I still have funds from that first campaign that I can either give back to the community in the sense of more rewards and more tier things like that, or pay more talent, give them a bigger. You got to pay your talent, give them a bigger stipend. But for me, it's always about getting the story out, getting the book out, getting more exposure for my character. I don't want it. It's not a cash grab, for me. I'm perfectly fine where I am in life. So for me, I really just want to be that creator side of telling my story. I want you to love the character. I want you to love his dog, Norman. I want you to love the story. I want you to relate to it. I want to be bigger than just 36 pages in your hand. One of the things I love whenever I sell a book at a con or give a book to a person, and I always say, read it and review it and let me know what you think. If you love it, tell me why you love it. If you don't like it, just give me a thumbs up and say, good shot, Dennis. Good stuff. So and I've gotten so many really cool reviews, something as little as I love Norman the dog, to something where like, I totally understand where you're coming from. I totally understand the American dream. Like I have so many cool reviews of just individuals hitting me up. And I think one of the coolest things is when you go con to con, it's, I started going to cons last year heavy. And this year, as I went to my first con, people came back and it was like, loved it. And I'm like, I'm issue 2 now. Story is going to continue. That's why I went with a second tier that was lower. It's all about the book, not about the money. The money's going to fund my team. I did a nice, cool tier. We hit over $2,000 and 50 backers. Reward is going to be stretch goal is trading cards. I love trading cards. So I brought on 6 different creators with 6 different cool designs on cards. I even said I might go as high as 8, depending on how much money we bring in. And what I did on my first campaign, I had trading cards also. Had not only would they do the front of the card, on the back was a picture of that creator and their bio, because they're doing me the service. I'm paying them, but this is also about the community. Like on the back of that card, if you like that art, you'll see that creator, his Instagram, Facebook, Twitter handle, and you can go follow that guy. And that's 8 of those guys. So this time I have 6. I'm going to go up to 8. All different indie creators. So I reached out to 6, actually now 7 different creators from first campaign. And I told them, I'm going to pay you this much and you're going to get some publicity, you get the shine on this. And when the time comes, I'm going to get a picture of you to put on the back and you write a little bio and I'm going to put you out there. And because that's what indie does. Indie supports indie. I really, really believe that.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea too, to have the artwork and then the people on the back and their information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's like almost like a business card in a way that shows their work, but like it's not them giving out their business cards. I don't know how to put it in a way. It's like it's almost like you are referring them to people instead of them having to do it themselves, because people are coming to me because they're being referred to me, like from like Jeff that we know, and other people that I've interviewed, and it's like they're kind of like doing the work for me in a way, which is kind of nice, which is what it sounds like you're doing for the artists that you work with. They put in the hard work to help you out, provides you with a service, so you're kind of like returning the favor by like, hey, here's this cool artist, this person that I know, you should check their work out. So I think that's really cool.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, and also speaking of Norman, don't kill that dog. Don't kill that dog. Don't kill that dog. Please don't kill it.
So Norman is my dog. He's a rescue. We rescued like 3 years ago. He's my best buddy. He's just the biggest goofball, like 180 pounds. He's heavy as hell. But he's adorable. But no, don't worry. I got big plans for him. Issue 2. I got some ridiculous plans for him in issue 2. I can't wait to show everybody. You're funny.
Speaking of cons that you've gone to, are you attending any more this year? And I guess if you are or if you aren't, where can people find you online?
For cons, I just came from South Carolina Comic Con. It's actually one of it's now one of my favorite cons. I'm gonna try and hit them every year. I think they have a South Carolina Comic Con Junior. I'm gonna see if I can hit that. I think it's in October. The one I signed up for, and I scaled back this year. Last year I went crazy. And I really spent so much money on travel and all that. I really dialed back. I want to do more local. I'm doing one. I have one in Fayetteville. I think it's in July. Real local one. The big one is Heroes Con in Charlotte. That's the Charlotte one. It's our version of like ECC or New York Comic Con or San Diego. So it's in Heroes. So you can find me there with the rest of my fellas. The Savage Sandbox, Heroes Con. Last year when I went, overwhelming. It's an indie creator. You're all the way by the bathrooms. So they said, You get the more you cons you do for heroes, hopefully you move closer and closer to the center where all the big boys are. So we'll see where we end up this year. I'm just excited to see everyone. And again, it's local. So it's my people. So I really want to be like, hey, like I'm a local boy. Like, come talk to me. At least, the conversation shouldn't end once you leave my table. I'm local. You can always hit me up on my Instagram, Dr. Valencia Designs. It's dr.valencia Designs. Same thing on Facebook. I don't do Twitter. I'm just trying to keep it positive. So right now, most of my work is always done on Instagram, a little bit on Facebook, but I kind of watch it from afar. But if you want to hit me up, Instagram is the easiest way. I respond to every DM, every message, good or bad. But yeah, those would be probably the easiest two ways to get to me.
Uh-huh. Speaking of going to cons and staying locally, I'm staying local. I offer the same advice to other creators who are getting into cons. I'm like, being local is better. I hit cons heavy too with my books last year. And going to a local gaming shop, they hold like free comic book day there. They do, they participate in the local events there as well, just to get more traffic. There's a lot of foot traffic in that area, just to get more traffic into their shop, gaming shop. And I've done things where like, because I'm getting to network more and know more people, they're referring me to places. Like one, I did a table, it was in October. I think maybe it may have been the end of September. Anyway, they like offered the table with me for free because they needed more people, and it was local. I didn't really have to spend any money, and I was able to invite another creator to split the table with me. So he didn't have to spend any money. If anything, he made money. Like those local events, with the exception of Baltimore Comic-Con, I've actually made more money than I spent on a table. Something huge like Baltimore Comic-Con, I would say split the table, because especially if you're first starting out with doing tables, you are not going to make any money back. I made my money back on like, I think it was like mid-afternoon on Sunday, even though I'd been there since Friday. Friday was dead. Saturday, it didn't pick up until like mid-afternoon, all the way until the evening. And then, like I said, I finally made my money back sometime Sunday. I forget actually. But yeah, it's, especially since I'm in the city, I'm in Baltimore City. But when you go further out into like the boonies, they don't really have anything out there. And I think they have money. They have money to spend, but they don't know where to spend it, and they don't want to go into the city. So if you bring the city to them, they spend money. So I just try to tell people, but the thing is that I know one person, I think she's like from Idaho, and the towns are like miles apart from each other. So it's like, what does that mean for me to stay local? I was like, oh, well, somebody within your orbit that has been to other cons in that state or in that area. So really just talk to them and see if it's worth it, really, or maybe just try to stay in, your local comic shop, or find some other local business that's doing something to promote their store to have you in there, whatever it may be. Yeah. So I just try to advise people to stay local.
Yeah, I did Baltimore last year. And I've actually met my rest of my crew. We all kind of like, it was the only con we all got together at.
What lane were you in?
I can't, real far out. That's all I remember.
Yeah, I was by I wasn't by the bathrooms in Artist Alley. I was by one of those restaurants. It wasn't the first one, it was the second one towards the back. And I was 2 lanes over. I
know if you're facing the front of it, I know it was real far to the right. That's all I remember. But you know what? Like when I was there with my fellas, like when they came from everywhere, one came from Jersey, 2 came from Jersey. The other one came from Charlotte with me. And the crazy thing was, it was such a buildup, because there were so many crazy creators there, like you're like, oh, like it wasn't like you landed or like I'm part of this. Like it's such a, place to be. But when we got there, it was so much that you were kind of drowned out, at least as far as the boys were. And at the end of it, some of us just looked at each other and like, the best part was meeting each other and talking, but, and getting to touch base. But as far as the business part of it, we were so drowned out. It was hard to actually, it didn't feel successful. I know leaving it, as many books as you move, it still felt like, I know it was a wash, only because they had this stay over. The hotel, I think me and my buddy, we drove 5 hours to get there. So it was a wash financially. And even the networking, as much as we did, it did have, when we left, it was a heavy feeling on your shoulders. So I think that's one of the reasons, like, the dollar value is one thing for this year, but the other thing is like keeping it local. I think it's a better way to really ingratiate yourself and your book out there. And I'm a small fry. Big fry will come, later on. Let's tone it down a bit. And that was a lesson we all took away from Baltimore. Like, yeah, we're not there yet. We're just not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people felt like that too when they were there. I was by, now I don't remember, I was by the shot glasses.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I don't know, you ever went past her booth?
I try not to leave my booth.
Okay, I try not to leave mine either, but my cousin helped me out when he was there on Saturdays. Friday and Sunday, I didn't leave my booth. But yeah, just say local. I was trying to find because I have it in a bag sitting right next to me. I was trying to find my table number when I was there.
Yeah, I might even have my lanyard, with the section on it. I'm trying to find it on my.
Yeah, I can't. I might have mine on my phone as well. I have. Oh my God.
Where's Baltimore on here? There we go.
Yeah. That's Baltimore.
Artist Alley. I was in D32, 32 and 34. D32 and D34. D32
and D32.
Yeah, I was trying to find out where it was. It was a lot of. The cool thing is the whole indie lane, that whole lane. I knew a bunch of guys just from Instagram, so it's kind of like, hey, I know you, or I follow you. It was pretty cool.
Baltimore Comic-Con. I was in E40.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's E49.
Crazy. Okay, you weren't far. You're right there.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I was right by the eatery place towards the back. There's two of them on the right-hand side, but I was in the second one. But I always told people I was right near the shot glasses. Everybody liked the shot glasses. That it attracted all the attention, and I try to get people onto my table.
Yeah, I hear that. That's not bad. I mean, anytime you're near food, at least you get some kind of traffic walking by. You can talk to somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I would rather be near the food than near the bathrooms. Because I spoke to somebody else, and I was like, "Is it good having all this traffic near the bathrooms?" He was like, "No, it's not." I was like, "Oh,
good to know."
But is there anything else that you wanted to discuss, Dennis, about Kickstarter, or anything I may have missed, or you want to ask me, maybe?
Well, I think at least as far as Kickstarter, I got like less than 14 days. So if anyone gets a chance, again, I'd love your support. $3 for a digital. It's not going to break your bank, I would hope. And if you have any questions on it, please reach out to me. It's all about the story. And if you're into capes and superheroes and, the good versus bad, I'm old school comic, a good fun read. As far as you, love what you're doing. What got you into doing what you're doing other than the pandemic? Like, it's a big deal to put yourself out there like that. Like, it's not a normal thing. Like, hey, I just wake up and be like, I'm going to do this.
Well, what I do, I host a podcast. I'm an urban fantasy self-published author. I've written 2 books. I'm like in the middle of writing my 3rd one right now. I'm trying to have it finished by the Baltimore Book Fest that they're bringing back in like the fall. They say between September and November, so somewhere in the fall. I'm also getting into acting.
Nice.
I just started in October of last year. I was an extra on 2 productions that they had here, Lady in the Lake and Lioness, that they had, and I liked it a lot. So what got me into acting was high school. When you're a freshman in high school, they ask you like, what do you want to get into? Do you want to get into the choir? Do you want to get into the band? Or do you want to get into like a sport or the theater? And theater intrigued me, but I was so scared to get into it because I didn't know anybody that was in theater. Everybody was either in the choir, they were in the band, or they played a sport. And I didn't really want to do any of those things. So it wasn't until my senior year of high school where like theater was like a dump thing, elective that you could take just to fill out your schedule for school.
Yeah.
And I took it and I loved it. And I just
Yeah.
like regretted it ever since that I didn't do it when I was a freshman in high school. I tried to do it when I was in college. It just didn't fit in with my major.
Yeah.
Fast forward 15 years, they were looking for extras on Twitter. And I was like, oh, I'll go and look it up and see how I can get into it. They immediately took me on.
Nice.
And then I'm just trying to get into it ever since. So, I mean, I just finished my last day on a web series, like a week ago. I'm doing a table read actually right after this.
That's awesome.
And I'm glad we were able to work it. I'm glad you could take it at 5 o'clock because we have it at like 7:30. And then I just
is this like your evolution of you as a creator and an artist? So it's like a different lane of you being creative.
Yeah, because so the thing is, when I worked at our casino that we have here, and we would share our New Year's resolutions, and mine was to live a creative and fulfilling life. That's what it was. I didn't have anything specific in mind. It was just we had to be creative. So my first thing was writing my first book, and I published it like literally on my 25th birthday.
That's awesome.
And then the podcast I started in 2019, so it was it was like maybe like 6 months before the pandemic. That I just wanted to like chronicleize, catalog, what have you, of the things that were going on locally in Baltimore that I feel like wasn't being talked about because it's so much about the violence and whatnot. But it's never about the local stuff that's going on, the exciting things, the creative things.
Nice.
And then I had to go virtual because of the pandemic. But and then the acting. So it's just, the writing and acting and doing the podcast and whatnot is just living a creative life, and it's just evolving into other things. Yeah. Just mainly because of the people that I interact with and just the people that just give me a chance, really. So that's all it is for me, is just to live a creative and fulfilling life.
So you think, if I would have asked you, so how long did you start doing this, like acting kind of thing? How long has it been?
The acting, like having lines, I started that in like February.
Okay. So if I said, like say 2 years ago, that you would be this passionate about it, would you have been like, oh yeah? Or is it something like you didn't realize how much you would enjoy it, and where it's just like, this is so, like, you didn't know that internal you is coming out, and you wouldn't ever have known if these opportunities didn't pop?
2 years ago, in regards to acting, no, I would not have believed you. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, because a lot of people tell me like about my potential and they're interested in my stuff and how naturally talented I am, but I wouldn't have believed it. I would have smiled and laughed. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. But it wasn't until I was like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. The worst they can say is no, right? Or just not say anything at all, which happens a lot in acting, which I think a lot of people don't really talk about, or I just probably didn't pay any attention to it. But there's a lot of rejection in this industry, whether it be writing, drawing, working on a podcast, acting and whatnot, which I think a lot of people are afraid of. But like, I enjoy the process of things. That's how I look at it. It's just another thing that I can learn and put into my bag, and use it some other time. So that's how I look at it. It's just a process to take with me as I go on my journey in life.
Are you and this is in the vein of the acting, are you surprising yourself? Do you ever stop and be like, I surprised myself on that one? Or
I'm surprised at how well I'm memorizing the lines.
Okay.
Because I tried to Google it. I was like, how do you memorize lines for acting? And there's no answer. There's nothing there to help you. I guess you have to be taught. I'm just like, well, I don't have money to go to school. So I had to learn. So I had to literally like memorize them on the car ride there, or like my dad would help me memorize lines and stuff like that. So I'm surprised that I can memorize lines. I'm surprised that people want to work with me as an actress, because I did an audition last week and they liked how I did this, how I read a certain word, because like it was emotional and my voice cracked. I didn't even hear it. I had no idea what they were talking about. So and then I've done a scene with someone who I think she's like classically trained as an actress. And she was like, that was really good. And it, how you act makes you want to step my game up. I was like, what are you talking about? I kind of like zone out in a way because I'm just so busy trying to read the lines. Right.
Are you actually saying like, what are you talking about? Or are you like, oh, thank you?
I say thank you, but in my mind, I'm like, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about? That's great. That's great. Yeah, you can't let them. You can't show it. You'd be like, yeah, I appreciate that.
I knew the whole time. Yeah, of course.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I meant to, that inflection in my voice. I meant that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then I'm like in the car. I'm like, I don't even remember any of the lines. I don't remember anything. It's just I did it already. It's gone. So
yeah. So what's the table read this afternoon or this evening?
It's for a stage play. It's called Around the Snake Turn. Okay. It's based on a woman from Ghana. It's not based on her specifically, but her experiences, and it's kind of bringing in themes of like tradition and generational trauma, family issues. I feel like a lot of countries outside of America specifically have this great thing of community in a way, but I feel like a great thing, probably one of the only great things being an American is we can be a bit more independent. Like we don't mind getting away from traditions. Like, it's great that our family is still willing to take care of us and have us in their home until we get married, until we have children, until we're settled on our feet. But what if you want to get away from your family? What if you want to get away from the traditions that they expect you to fulfill? I guess people are so afraid of the disappointment in their family because they want to get away from that. And then it's like their family makes them think that they don't love them or they don't care about what they've ever done for them. And it's like, if you love me that much, if you're going to provide this much for me, then you'll be here, if and when I fail in 3 years, or whenever the time may be. So if I want to leave home, let me leave home and let me live my own life. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll be back. Like, and, I'm not going to cut you all off or anything like that, but me living my own life is not me saying that I don't love you. It's just me wanting to go out and do my own thing. Because that's what.
So you think it's more like a societal or a cultural norm? Is what you're battling,
Yeah. That's what it kind of is in this play, in this stage play. So, I'm just doing the reading, and they're paying me for it. So, which is like my first paid gig outside of as an extra. Yeah, it is exciting.
Super exciting.
I don't know if they'll actually have me in the play, but that's months from now, and this is today. So that's all that matters to me.
You got this.
Thank you. I hope. I've been reading it right before we started, so I read halfway. So it'll be good.
You'll be fine. You'll kill it. You'll crush it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the comments.
I got you. That's what I'm here for.
All right. Well, that's enough about me. Again, I want to thank the creator, writer, and artist of the comic series Celestial Night, Dennis, for joining us here today to promote the issue 2 on Kickstarter. Currently, all of Dennis's socials and website will be listed in this episode's details alongside the Kickstarter link for those who are interested. Again, I'm KS Garner, and you've been listening to the Solo Nerd Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.